Hello and welcome to the Film Mandate, where we talk about movies both from the African scene and the international front. And today we have exactly that. Today we have two stories. The first, we're going to talk about an interview that John Apea, for those in Ghana who watch television a lot in the early 2000s, he was part of the production called Home Sweet Home, which starred stars like Kojo Datsun of Blessed Memory and Rama Brew, which was a comedy. And he spoke about the industry, so we'll be delving into that. Also, we have a news item from the international scene from China, that is the film industry from China, about the animated movie Neza 2. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So these are the two stories we'll be talking about today. But before we delve into them, I would like you to go and hit the subscribe button and share this video so that we can grow our community and talk more about movies both from the African front and the international scene. So we'll be starting in a moment, but first, let's take a bit of a break and then we'll return soon. Welcome once again to the Film Mandate, where we talk about movies both from the African scene and the international front. So today, our first story is going to be about John Appiah, uh, an actor who starred in the comic series called Home Sweet Home, which aired in the early 2000s, bringing us so much joy in our homes back then. And he had something interesting to say with regards to the film industry. He was interviewed about 2 weeks ago on Joy News about the industry, and he had an interesting thoughts to share. So we'll be taking a look at this clip, and afterwards we'll analyze it, and I'll give my comments about it. So as we prepare for this, I would like us to get ready as we talk a little bit more about the industry and the views he shared. And the views he shared, it's something that most people in the industry with a lot of insights uh, mostly would agree. So let's listen to it, and then afterwards we can give our perspective on what he said.
It has been a life-changing experience for me because I think from my time on TV, I learned so much. And yes, the creative arts is not given the respect that it should be. And I worked with some of the greatest actors like Kofi Bakna of Blessed Memory, Kojo Datsun, phenomenal actors, Samajete Fio. We've had phenomenal actors who, unfortunately, they've been born in a continent or in a country where we didn't have the right structures in place to support them.
Yeah, so about the industry not getting the necessary respect. Yes, a lot of artisans and filmmakers who are in the, I mean, I wouldn't even say just filmmakers, but those who are in the creative arts in this part of our world definitely agree with what he said, that it is not the crafts and the arts is not given the necessary respect, and unfortunately it doesn't have the right structures to support it. But he continues further, so let's continue, and then we would take a break if necessary to talk about it.
In the 60s and 70s, we had a lot of structures, you know, where we had Ghana Films. You had a lot of structures that could help make real stars and let them be able to earn a living out of what they were doing. But the lack of respect for the sector has been to do with the fact that it seems like a hobby for most people. You know, if people were well paid, like you have in Hollywood, where they have their own place called Hollywood and they earn lots of money and they have their own private checks, etc., I think it would have brought more respect. So I'm hoping that over the next few years, we'll have the right policies in place that will help to support the creative arts, whether you're talking of music, you're talking of film or theater. The talent there is boundless. And it's a
Yeah, so I've always had this view about the film industry. As a matter of fact, I think the view I have applies to any other industry, not necessarily to the film industry. So he made mention of policy. He made mention of policy, and I'm of the opinion that for every industry to thrive, three you need to consider three factors or three things. It may not necessarily be the exhaustive list for why an industry to thrive would thrive if all these three factors exist. But policy is one of them. And secondly, you need infrastructure. And thirdly, even perhaps most importantly, is data, because no investor would want to put in their money into an industry if they don't have the requisite data by which to judge whether the industry as a whole is viable. But I mean, for another time, we'll delve into it much deeper. But I'm glad he brought the issue of policy that can help the creative arts industry, particularly for us who talk about movies, the film industry. So let's listen to the rest of the interview and then we'll continue.
a hat that I wear with pride still. And I'm looking forward to do something within that space to help young filmmakers, young singers, young creatives to realize that what they have is as important as STEM and science, etc.
Would you say that the Ghanaian movie industry is dead?
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, this this is big. I mean, most people share this view, but well, let me not preempt everything. Let me just allow it to finish and then we'll talk more about it.
I don't remember the last time, I watched a Ghanaian movie, if I'm being very honest. And I think our cinema going culture is pretty dead, so it is dead. But I think there's a lot of changes happening across board. I don't think it's only for Ghana. I think for Nigeria and for other places, they're less dead,
Right.
but they're still on a bit of a decline as opposed to how it was.
Yeah, but Nollywood is doing quite well, isn't it?
So let me just pause and say something. I may understand the perspective is coming from. I mean, hey, this gentleman has been in the industry, the thick and the thick of it. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. But I would rather say the industry, for lack of a better word or to describe the state of the industry, I wouldn't say it is necessarily dead. Maybe it's in a coma, because for something to be dead, it means that there is no hope. Which, if you watch the interview to the latter part, he speaks about he hopes to do something to help, to invest into the industry, meaning that it's not dead, because if it's dead, you can never resurrect it. So I would say coma. So let's continue.
Relatively well.
Yeah, to our sector. Do you feel that they've been a drain on perhaps the talent we had, paying and enticing more of our creatives to move into their space and ending up crippling the Ghanaian movie industry?
No. I think Ghana's problems are to be owned by Ghana itself. Nigeria has a lot of benefits. They have a larger market, larger population.
Right.
They also understand the idea of show business. And a lot of the time, many people just understand the show part of it.
Yeah.
But there's a business side to it. You have Nigerian industrialists who might put millions of dollars into a particular film because they believe in the sector.
Right.
You know, so I think that is the difference. There's a
Yeah, so just as he said, I agree with him. I mean, when you compare Nigeria to us, hey, do you have entrepreneurs pumping money into the sector? But this comes back to one of the factors I spoke about. For some reason, I'm sure there will be some form of data by which to judge whether the industry is performing. Unfortunately for us, there's nothing like that. But we'll talk more about it. I think he speaks more about what the Nigerian industry, I mean, the people have been doing. So let's listen to it.
from an economies of scale perspective, it's easier for them to do well. You do a movie back in the days, 1 million people watch it in Nigeria. If each person is charging the equivalent of $1, that's $1 million. Right. You know, so in terms of numbers, it's a numbers game. You know, so I don't think they've siphoned our talent or cannibalized our talent or anything of that sort. It's an opportunity for us to actually see how we can collaborate with our brothers in Nigeria. You know, I know occasionally we beat them in football, etc. now.
Jollof rice
is
probably
better than theirs as well. But I believe in cooperation. I believe in partnership. And I think it's for us to see how we can work with them, both in terms of Afro beats, in terms of music, etc. Let's see how we can work with them to better our
and
industry.
probably because the sector has not been as rewarding.
Yeah, so yeah. So this is the interview granted by John Apea. For those who watched Home Sweet Home back in the day, John Apea was the main character of the comedy series Home Sweet Home, and I, if my mind serves me right, he also starred in a movie called Run Baby Run, and it was quite an exciting movie for the time. So yeah, this is an interview I think is worth talking about because listen, anytime you hang around with people in the industry, most often than not, there is, I mean, a lot of people even claim that we don't even have an industry. So even for Mr. John Appear to have said that our industry is dead, meaning there's an acknowledgement of a film industry. Yes, it's not performing well, and just as I said, coma. It's in coma because the reason why I said it's in coma is that there are pockets of successes. I mean, it's perhaps very small, but as a whole, it's not really felt. So, depending on where you may be at any particular point in time, you would think you are not doing well or the industry is dead. From another person's perspective who is getting the opportunity to do projects, yes, that individual may also claim that, hey, the industry is not that bad since I keep getting work, I keep getting the funding to do the productions I want to do. So I wouldn't say it's that it's in a coma. So, but for John Appear, I believe that having been in the industry and now he's out and he's taking a look at it with his experience, I very much think that yes, he has a broader view of it now than perhaps he did, especially now that he's in fintech. If I'm not mistaken, I think he in the yeah, I think in an interview that I watched also on Joy News, he spoke about being in investments in the finance sector. So yes, with this interview granted, I mean, granted him by Blessed Soga, what he spoke about the industry is a reality that a lot of filmmakers are dealing with. Anytime you end up on set, you're talking to different people, more than 70% or more will claim that we don't even have an industry. And it is difficult to sometimes accept that fact, but there is a semblance of an industry, yes, albeit the fact that it's not really performing well as we want to. So there are a number of things he said that I would like to highlight on just as a reaction to what he said or to this interview. First, he spoke about structures. Yeah, back in the days in the 60s, 70s, perhaps even way before that, especially during the Ghana film colony, at the time when the British established the Ghana film colony, which, if I'm not mistaken, ended up becoming NAFTA. There were some form of structures. They had systems in place where when a movie is shot or it must shot with a particular requirements where it ought to be shown, even coming way down to the 80s, 90s, there was a form of structure where if your film is shot and ready, you would have to take it to executive theater. Back then, I think it was Gamma Films, and then it will be shown there in a couple of places. So there was a form of structure. It had its own challenges. Yes, it's not perfect. I don't think we've ever seen the proper glory days as Hollywood or any other thriving film industry has. But yes, we don't have the structures now. I'm glad that there is now a body, the body NFA, National Film Authority, established to help bring all these, I would say, free sections together to form a very formidable industry. And that is what we are all hoping for, because once the structure is in place, putting on the flesh and all the systems necessary will be much easier. Because if you take a look at the industry, everything you can ever think of in some form or fashion exists in Ghana. You know, from logistics, um, even entertainment, the law, all these aspects exist. And if I would even dare say, the, the film industry is the only industry that brings all other industries together to make it work, because it is said that what life art imitates life, and whatever we put on screen we borrow from life. So it means that you need to bring all people from different walks of life in different industries to help make the films that are produced successful. So it is really an industry that needs proper structuring to make it work. Otherwise, just as John Apea said, it would remain as dead. And that is something that is true. We don't have the structures. And even if we do, it's not working. So it's non existent to an extent. Yeah. So just as I said, the Ghana industry, I wouldn't say is dead, it's in coma. If it's dead, it means that it can never be resurrected unless there's a miracle. But definitely, yeah, it's not as functional as we would hope it to be. That is in the collective sense. I'm saying in the collective sense because for an individual who does a production, who is able to get the funding to do a production, maybe go to film festivals throughout Europe and Americas, and is able to make some form of deal to have his film or her film shown in cinemas outside. Hey, from his or her perspective, they are likely to say, yeah, the industry works. But if you look at it collectively as a whole, it's quite a problem. Just as I said, um, I I wouldn't say this is an exhaustive list, but from my own observations, there are three things to make the industry work or to resurrect it, and that is policy, infrastructure, and data. Without these three, we don't have an industry. I'm talking about a properly organized industry that falls within this three category. So that is something that I agree with him. Also, comparing Ghana and Nigeria, our industry are quite different. He spoke about the economics of scale, which makes sense because the population of Nigeria is massive compared to Ghana. As a matter of fact, Ghana as a country would fit into just a state. So you can really tell that if you're a filmmaker in Nigeria, you are likely to be more successful than a filmmaker in Ghana. And I mean, talking about India and then America, albeit, yes, it has to be good. But then he also spoke of something which I think as a continent, we may need to think about it. Our economies of scales as individual countries would never get us far. However, should we unite, should we have one economic bloc where a movie that is released in Ghana can screen in all these countries, a filmmaker would definitely make, recoup their investments back. But if you make a film and you would only end up screening it in your country without the opportunity to screen it in, I mean, at the same time in several countries, it becomes a problem. And the likelihood of you recouping your money is next to none. Also, most often when films are screened in Ghana, sometimes maximum 3 weeks, but most often by 2 weeks it's fizzled out. Compared to US, which back then before COVID they had a 90-day screening window. Now it's been cut down to 45 screening window, with some films or some studios pushing the envelope to return back to the 90-day opening window. And all these are structures that are helping their industry. And I hope NFA and the guilds and the cinema owners and everybody will come together so that we can formulate a structure that can help our industry. We badly need it. We badly need it. So the key to the success of it all, just as he has already highlighted, is working together, whether internally as a country or collectively as a continent. I mean, not internally as a country and collectively as a continent. So this is really a wonderful interview that I'm happy someone is talking about it. Yes, we'll be reviewing films and all that, but these kinds of interviews are needed to bring exposure to the challenges we are facing in industry and also even commend the successes when we achieve them. So I'm really grateful for this interview. And that ends our story for, I mean, our first story. That is the interview of John Apea by Blessed Sugar of Joy News. So I'll leave the link in the description below. If you want to watch it further or more, you can still go there and watch. Yeah. So next, we'll be going to the mainland China to talk about a movie that was released quite recently. And the movie is none other than Neza 2. I'm trying to bring up the image of the poster of the film so that we can have a basic idea as to what it looks like. Now, Neza 2 is actually an animation. It is an animation, and apparently the first one was released about 4 years ago, and it made some huge box office wins that surprised a lot of people in the West. Yeah. a lot of people in the West. However, Neza 2 is indeed a movie that is making waves now, particularly in mainland China. Particularly in mainland China. So I'm trying to get used to the OBS software I'm using, pardon me. Yeah. So this is the poster, Neza 2. And so far it is topping the box office charts worldwide. As it stands now, in this very week, it is the one lead in the box office worldwide, which have been reported by some trades, not just in mainland China, but also in what do we call it? In the US. In the US. Yeah. So I'd like to read an article that I came upon, an article by Variety, which spoke about the success of this film. And after that, we can review it and talk more about it. So, this, so this film was released just a couple of weeks ago and it's already made some big strides. And yeah, I'm having some little difficulty, but yeah, we are working it out. Yeah. So I'll read from the browser since I'm not getting a clear view in the OBS software. Yeah, so I read. China box office, Neza 2 leads again as new releases make modest debuts. China's box office for the weekend of March 21st to 23rd saw Neza 2 maintaining its dominant position while new releases made modest debuts. Neza 2 earned RMB 85.7 million, that is $11.9 million over the weekend, bringing its cumulative total to $2.081 billion, according to Artisan Gateway. In its eighth week, the animated blockbuster continues to captivate audiences in IMAX. Captivate audiences. In IMAX, Laser 2 added 1.8 million globally, a 41% drop from the previous weekend, increasing its global cum in the format to $158.2 million, with $154 million from China alone. Hana Pictures, The River of Fury, debuted in second place with $2 million, directed by Feng Yongqin. The film is a crime thriller where the mysterious disappearance of a woman is related to a series of murders. So yeah, these are, I mean, following it are a number of movies that also made a big impact. So yeah, so Neza 2, which happens to be currently China's biggest box office, has already crossed 2 billion. It's already crossed 2 billion. And listen, just as we were talking in the story before, Nigeria having economies of scale, China has even the biggest ever. So for this film to have crossed 2 billion, hey, it's not surprising. I'm sure the movie is very good. That is why people are going to watch it perhaps multiple times. But if you consider the economies of scale, it is very possible for China to make $2 billion off a film easily. Just to even, I mean, it's it's a challenge because for just as we were talking about structures, it's a challenge sometimes for um, folks in the West to accept some of the results coming from China because they have a very clear system by which um, the box office results are collated. And the reason being that I think in previous years, issue came up as to how this data was collated. But I believe perhaps it's been resolved. That's why now I'll show you another article. This is even a website which indicates the box office success of Neza 2, and mainly accepted in the United States. I never thought it was even possible till I saw the article myself. So yeah, I just pulled it up, and this is Box Office Mojo, one of the most credible sites when we talk about box office receipts from all over the world, but particularly from North America. And here, as you can see on the screen, you have Neza 2. And this, as we are referring to, has to do with the current box office ranking for this very week. Box office rankings for this very week. So you can see worldwide, Neza 2 is leading on this very platform with 1.893 billion 722,605 $7. $7. So for Nezatu to be on the box office mojo, it means that there's some, I'm sure they verified the authenticity of all the collated results that is coming in. So Nezatu is really big, and it proves that um, box office receipts, pardon me, from Asia. I mean, for Asia to have had this result, it's also possible even in Africa. As we said in the previous story, the structures work. So one way or the other, they are likely to produce this result. We'll talk more about the industry and perhaps what we can do as a people to make it work. However, I mean, if you look at the box office rankings, you have Captain America: Brave New World, which is Marvel's cinematic outing this year. Yeah, this year, the first this year, making 401,323,459. So that is the second, and you can see the gap. Regardless, hey, this is good money. I mean, in terms of numbers with regards to Marvel films, this is way low on the spectrum. But hey, it's still good money, and we wish in Africa we can be making such, um, you know, monies for our films. We also have Dogman, which made 129 million, and then Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, 121 million. Mickey 17, which stars Robert Pattinson, which is who is the current Batman in the Matt Reeves universe, made 109 million, over 109 million. I think the director is Joe Bon Hu. I mean, hey, incredible director. He made the movie Parasite, the movie Parasite, which won several awards in the year of its release. So you have Snow White, a classic, making over 86 million. The Monkey, Den of Thieves, and a lot more. So this is the box office receipt proving that Nezatu indeed has become a force to rank. I mean, to reckon with. It has become a force to reckon with. So this is the second story concerning today's episode. And listen, there are a lot to learn from this. And as much as I'm sharing the stories, these are stories I believe that we can use to help also build our industry in Ghana. But if you're looking at a bigger picture collectively as Africa. So once again, I really appreciate you joining me for this episode of the Film Mandate. I'd like you to take the opportunity to ask you to go and subscribe and share and like this video so that we can build a film community and talk more about films, share more information. As you do that, it supports me to help bring you more information from both the African front and the international scene. I am Papa O2, and this has been the Film Mandate.